all of the Joe stars had sex before Jonathan's death.
No.
It's one big incest family.
Welcome to another episode of the Blue Banana Podcast. I'm your host, Sophie. With me, I have Liam and I have Manu.
Hey. You were JoJo posing there, weren't you?
Was that an appropriate opening?
I wish you'd warned us. I would have prepared something.
Does a JoJo pose the thing? Is that one?
The grabbing the hat? Yeah, that's a Jotaro pose, yeah.
All right, that's the only one I know.
So if you guys haven't guessed by now, we are discussing JoJo today. But before we get to that, how are you guys doing? How's your week been?
Good. Full stop.
All right, very expressive.
I'm doing good. Very excited to talk about JoJo, my arch nemesis. People have been telling me to give it another try, and I've told them I've already seen it, and they were like, but watch it again. And I was like, I have.
You've not already seen it, Manu. To this day, you still haven't.
Have you seen it a third time?
Have you seen the different parts?
So anyways, I gave it another shot.
Would you say that it changed anything this time around?
So as a full disclaimer, I started JoJo. I finished the entire first season the first time I watched it.
And when we say the first season, are we saying part 1 and part 2 or just part 1?
Part 1.
So
okay.
You got about a third of the way through the first season.
So I watched that, and then like part 2 kind of lost me a little bit there halfway. That's the first time I stopped. The second time I did skip part 1 because it's kind of straightforward. It's like, how you say, the archetype JoJo story as far as I get. So I just jumped in with 2, made it like 3/4 in. Stopped again. And then the third time I tried watching it, I just watched 3 instead, which I did enjoy, but then still dropped around like halfway in. And so this time I watched the first 2 episodes.
Part 3 is very long.
Of 3, and then also of 4, which some people tell me is their favorite part.
Very commonly cited, parts 4 and 7. Pretty universally agreed upon. Peak fiction.
Yeah, I wouldn't go that far, but it was definitely the most enjoyable. So, like, can you explain something for me, Liam?
Maybe.
Which is something, like, I've always been confused about, maybe because I've never watched JoJo fully. Do people actually think that JoJo is peak fiction, or is that just a meme everyone who's watched it has agreed upon so they can kind of, like, gang up on people who haven't watched it?
The thing about JoJo is that I think it's fair to say, as a series, manga or anime, it exists in its own lane. It's very difficult to compare to other series. So as a result, you get a lot of people who do appreciate it for what it is, but also understand that there's a lot of flaws in, I would say, every area across all the parts. But there are also that subset of people who view JoJo as something so unique that it is a priceless work of art. It is peak fiction. It is one of the greatest things that society has ever produced.
I don't know. I feel like those are very different concepts though, right? There's a difference between saying something is peak fiction and something is just such a unique piece of art. I would agree that JoJo is a very unique piece of art that should be appreciated for that. To call it peak fiction, however, you would have to completely dismiss all the flaws that you have referenced.
But where's the peaks?
Mate, you've spoken truly like someone who's only just on the cusp of part 4. Truly, truly, truly.
I feel like right now I'm experiencing what it's like being on the other side of someone who hasn't seen One Piece, and someone's explaining to me,
when
you
does
know
it
what,
get
you just
good?
have stick
200
with it
episodes
until
in.
200 episodes in and you'll love it.
I don't think that's
Gets
true
great
at all.
at Marineford. Wano is where it really picks up.
Yeah, just give it like 800 to 900 episodes and it'll really get you.
You just got to get to episode 1000 and you'll be hooked.
I understand that you guys are joking, and I am taking us on a bit of a detour here, but I find people who insist that One Piece only gets good at Marineford as as fake fans. I mean, you're probably only
Called
there
out.
for the peak fighting at that stage. And
yeah.
One Piece isn't just about the battles.
Yeah, also, any slubby Alabasta, people have their, markers when they say it gets good. It gets good pretty immediately, chapter 1.
I mean, I can understand people finding maybe Syrup Village and Orange Town not as compelling.
People who don't like dogs and clowns, I guess. Orange Town was amazing.
Or barrels and fat ladies.
Yeah, who doesn't love both of those things?
And she becomes super smooth.
We are going down a very, I guess not a dark path, a very bright path, because we all love One Piece. I personally think that if you're not truly on board with it by the end of Baratie Baratier, it
Yeah.
probably isn't for you.
I mean, to be fair,
Yeah,
I would
agree.
argue that it does get better, I think. Like,
Exponentially.
Yes, yeah, exponentially better. But I would agree, like, if by Baratier, roughly, you still not kind of vibing with the story, like at that point where it kind of like starts getting more intense, might not be for you.
It's also very different because One Piece at least is still like one journey, right? It's like one adventure and we're feeling one storyline.
It's not like 8-piece and it's Luffy's grandson who's still fighting against the same bad guy who still has had no character development 8 parts into the story.
Spoken truly like someone who did not finish part 3 and has seen a handful of episodes in part 4.
I have to put a disclaimer as well that I finished the entirety of part 1, watched about half of part 2. It's not that I didn't vibe with it, it was just more the fact that I knew that we were going to have to discuss this today, and I didn't think that I would be able to contribute fully only having watched 2 parts. So then I skipped over to part 3.
See, that's the difference between you and me, Sophie. I've barely seen it and I still feel like I can contribute immensely to this conversation. I mean, to be fair, I would say, like with anything, you don't have to, like, I think it's fair from like One Piece fans to say like you can have an opinion if you haven't watched it because clearly it did not catch you for whatever reason. I feel like that's a legit opinion to have. It's not a great one, it's a pretty shit opinion, but it's a legit one to have.
I think you can have an opinion on the marketing and how it didn't draw you in. I don't think you can have an opinion on the series if you've never experienced it at all. How do you know what the story is if you've not tried it?
I mean, if you've watched a couple of episodes, I think he's talking about if he's watched a bit of it.
If you watched a bit of anything, you can have an opinion, yeah.
No, I will say if it's a good story, it would have wanted me to keep going under any, like, usually you have like the classic 3-episode rule, which I would apply to myself as well, which I think is a good measure for if the story has done a good, like, doesn't say that there's not like stories that take a bit longer and then you really get into it, but just to get you to the point where after like 3 episodes, which is kind of like the grace period where you're like, okay, this is new or different, let's see like where this journey takes us. And then usually after episode 3, 2, 3, 4, you have the feeling like, okay, let's give it a little bit more. Like, let's watch 2 or 3 more episodes, see if it gets me then. Or I say, okay, not for me. Or I say, wow, this is the best thing I've ever seen. I can't wait to like binge the rest in like 2 days. Like, for example, a good example of me that happening recently, I watched Summertime Render. I had no idea what the series is about, only that like some people said it was underrated and didn't get enough attention. It popped up on Netflix. I watched the first 2 episodes and I finished the entire 24 episodes in like less than 48 hours. And after like 2 episodes, even after the first episode, I knew that I wanted to know what the hell was going on and that I wanted to watch this show.
But after the first episode of part 3, you weren't like, ooh, I need to see that Dio Brando defeated in Egypt.
I feel like it just reminds me like someone took like Fashion Week or like Bottega and like kind of turned it into an anime.
That is pretty much exactly what Araki does. He has a library of fashion magazines and encyclopedias of fashion, and he sometimes just draws pretty direct poses, like almost what you would describe as plagiarism in certain spheres.
Which I have to say, I have positive things to say too, because Aramaki, is it Araki?
Hirohiko Araki.
Araki, yeah. So his book is one of my favorite books on anime and storytelling that
I think
I've
we've
read.
talked about it before. It is a
We
great
have
book.
talked about it before, and I find it hilarious that he does not seem to implement his own advice in parts of the story.
It is very hypocritical, which is one of the things I love about
In
it.
case you don't know, like the author of JoJo's has written a fantastic book on how to write proper shonen manga, how to draw, how to build a story.
Translated in English as well.
Big recommendation, fantastic story, fantastic like explanation of how story works in anime, like the classic arc, what hero's supposed to be, how to create conflict, and at least in the parts of JoJo that I've seen, he like takes his own advice and kind of throws it out of the window.
The thing about that book, which is why I think it's so useful, is because a lot of it is Araki reflecting on his mistakes. He acknowledges that Jonathan from part 1 was a poor protagonist, and that's why there was an attempt to correct that so radically with the more loudmouth Joseph in part 2. That book is Araki basically just laying out all of his mistakes in a positive way and saying, this is how we should have done it. And there's some really useful stuff in there. Like, I really enjoyed a part early on where he stresses that the first page of any manga is the most important page in the entire series. You should be paying stupid amounts of attention to that. And then I look back on the first page of JoJo and I'm like, you did not spend enough time on this page. And you know it, which is why you're telling us that now.
I think his argument is kind of like YouTubers with thumbnails. You only have one chance to go to like leave a good impression and capture someone's interest. And like for the big like rows of aspiring manga artists, they just get like a 1 minute glance from like someone who's recruiting new people at whatever magazine, Shonen Jump or whatever magazine of your choice or publishing company of your choice. And they basically read your first page. And if they don't vibe with that first page, they're like, good luck, come back next year.
Even if they do, with readers as well, Shonen Jump is a really chunky magazine with like 18 series a week. If you've got a new series in and someone goes, this isn't One Piece, this isn't Naruto, I'm not familiar with this. They sort of glance over the first page. And if it does not grab them, metaphorically and perhaps literally by the balls, then they're just going to skip that chapter. Unless they're dedicated to seeing it out.
I mean, it is JoJo's Bizarre Adventures. You never know. A hand could come out and pluck someone's balls. I would have
absolutely
put it out of the question.
That would be regular. The truly crazy thing is that neither of you have even gotten to the bizarre parts yet.
Oh, it gets more bizarre?
Parts 1 through 3 are incredibly normal in retrospect.
So I have a question for you, Liam, then. Why do you like JoJo so much?
Oh, man. Sophie, that is a question I struggle with. I think it's a great question for any JoJo fan, actually, because I think most of us, dick-sucking memes aside, are fairly reasonable people who understand that it's such a heavily flawed property. But I would say that JoJo, out of everything I've ever seen or read, has some of the highest highs, but also some of the lowest lows. So it can become like a massive roller coaster journey that you go on, especially in stuff like Part 3, where a lot of it is very hit and miss, and it's also very long. It gets saved by these glorious, weirdly creative moments that you will never see in any other piece of media, probably in human history again. And then it also takes you down to these incredibly low, what the shit are you doing moments. Like, there is a moment in Part 8, JoJolion, where I think we spend 4 to 6 chapters battling with rhinoceros beetles. And that was a part in that one where I was just like, okay, I'm not so interested in this. Can we stop with the hyperfixation on the beetle fight? Because it's about the protagonist and one of the antagonists. I feel like they're battling over the fruit. I don't completely remember it, but they're like subtly trying to influence the battle of rhinoceros beetles. And it just takes too long. It takes too long. And there's stuff like that everywhere. But for every rhinoceros beetle fight, there is a man who becomes a turtle, and we love him for it.
Yeah, okay.
You sold that really nicely.
One of my favorite Part 3 episodes was a game of poker, essentially. A game of poker for souls. It was really well done because it wasn't over-the-top shonen action. It was just pure psychology. And it was one of those first signs to me that Araki has really started to get into his groove. And this isn't going to sell JoJo for you, but I think the first time where JoJo becomes something that I might describe as a nigh-on flawless series takes all the way to Part 7. That part is just golden. It is so hard to point to flaws in Part 7, in my opinion.
Things that it does really well, like what's so different about Part 7 then?
I guess it doesn't really matter because I don't think either of you are going to reach it, judging by how this discussion is going. But Part 7 resets the JoJo universe. The JoJo universe ends at the end of Part 6 through very
And so, wait.
funky,
Just before you get into
means.
details here, you're saying JoJo gets really good when JoJo ends? Is that what you're saying?
And that's the completely restart. When it's no longer JoJo.
This is disregarding Part 4 and Part 5, which are both like beloved on their own. Part 6 it's controversial, to say the least. Not the least because it ends the JoJo universe. But Part 7, Araki smacks this reboot button and he's like, okay, what if we did everything the same, but like really different? And so instead of England, our first JoJo is now in America, and he's in a horse race contest across the country trying to find the corpse parts of Jesus Christ. And the main antagonist is the President of the United States.
Oh, is that where the famous Trump panel comes from?
Trump panel?
Oh, no, sorry, that's Death Note, never mind.
No, there is no Trump in JoJo that I'm aware of. Because by that point, Araki had been writing action adventure stands for, I think, going on 20 years at that point. It's a slow process, but it feels like he finally created the perfect series with that. He just got everything right. Story, characters, like weird creativity with the stand fights in particular. And it's just, everything is worth it for that, for me anyway. There are people who will disagree with me. There are people who will disagree everywhere in the JoJo fandom because each part has its own sect of apologists.
I mean, speaking of the powers...
I think I know what you're going to ask. Where is Hamon?
Hamon? Forget Hamon. We disregard it.
Just like it never existed.
Yeah, but like, was there like ever any explanation why the power system changed?
It existed. Joseph uses Hamon in part 3 a couple of times in addition to his stand. Araki realized that Hamon was a mistake. It was inherently uninteresting and just decided to put it over here and introduce a new power system.
I mean, one that's not named after a Spanish ham, I guess.
Yeah, one that doesn't sound delicious.
Hamon.
But also one that allows you to be more creative because Hamon, it was very streamlined. It was one thing. Whereas stands, infinite creativity. That's one of the things I love about JoJo in that you can clearly see that huge faults, but you can also see the author correcting those faults as time goes on. And I think it's a very bold move to just remove the series power system and replace it with another one. Like, for One Piece, imagine if post-time skip Oda just took away devil fruits and now it was all haki.
Which is like sort of almost what happened, but
the reverse.
It's yeah, exactly.
Araki took away the haki system and implemented devil fruits instead. Yeah, pretty much.
I will agree with you. Even just watching from parts 1 to 3, and not even like the complete parts for part 2 and part 3, you can really see the step up in sort of like the quality of his artwork, but also his storytelling. Because I wouldn't blame anyone for not really liking JoJo, having only watched part 1.
I would question the people who did like it from just watching part 1.
I wouldn't say that I liked it, but I wouldn't say I disliked it. I'd just say like it felt very much like something I would watch in the 80s, that maybe something I would have enjoyed when I was a kid and I didn't really understand things like character development and, really compelling plot lines. Because the characters are so flat.
A big part of that is it was made in the 80s.
Yeah. Exactly.
Like, it is dated, very dated.
It's kind of like Japanese TV shows still are today. It's like, as you say, very random. It's really hard to understand what's going on, and they take like these random detours that like, where you're kind of like, wait, are we still in the same storyline? And then at some point they randomly come back to that. Like, let me ask you this, Liam, then. Why did you keep watching past part 1?
The first 4 times, I didn't. I
So
stopped.
it took you 4 times too. Mana, you've hit the golden number. You just gotta persevere now.
It took me a long time because, like you, people were relentless and go like, nah, man, you need to do the JoJo. And I gave it a try, reading it twice, watching it twice. I finally decided to watch it a 3rd time, and that was the one that broke me, because that was when I finally got all the way through part 2 into part 3 and sort of started to gel with what this was. This is never a glowing recommendation. JoJo you're not going to get what you want from it if you sit down and expect like a standard story in any way, shape, or form. It's completely its own thing, and you've got to kind of recalibrate to it to get into it, which requires a lot of work and a lot of investment that I don't blame anyone for not wanting to put in. But once you do, it's an experience unlike any you will ever have.
Because of the eccentric characters, or...
Eccentric characters, situations, creativity, how those characters interact with one another.
I mean, the reason why I feel like I'm hating so much right now is because I really put in the effort of trying to like it, and I'm struggling really hard to find like that. Like, it's not like I hate JoJo's, like, don't get me wrong. I think it's like a good or decent show, and I think it really like I can kind of see like the characters super unique, the art style very unique, very eccentric, and I do think like the art style is really cool. It's just not quite enough. And to be fair, I've become a little bit picky with like anime and stuff like that.
You elitist.
Probably. Yeah.
Chainsaw Man and Blue Lock for me, the peak fictions.
I mean, it is really hard to watch something so old when you're used to watching like recent anime. It's a completely different different experience. And I'd actually say, like what you were saying earlier, Manu, about anime has to grab you in like the first 3 or 4 episodes. I don't think you can sort of apply that same sort of mentality with JoJo because it's just so old. I actually feel like you have to apply that mentality but extend it, so it's like you have to watch the first 4 parts.
It's like sitting down to watch Citizen Kane and going, why isn't this grabbing me? Why is the story moving so slow? I'm not comparing JoJo to Citizen Kane, by the way. Or maybe I am. It's fine. I enjoyed JoJo more than Citizen Kane. I thought Citizen Kane was boring as fuck.
See, that's why I asked in the beginning, and like I was like obviously a little bit mean there when I asked if it's like just a meme that everyone pretends to like JoJo, because obviously the memes are really funny, and like I can totally see why people enjoy it.
It's so hard to explain. If I had to use one word, I would say it's the culture. I think JoJo does highly benefit from the memes. I think it benefits from being able to talk to other people about JoJo and being able to say something like and having that person understand what the fuck is happening.
But even I understand what I know that meme.
But more obscure stuff as well.
Yeah, I do know like the classic music themes and whatever.
JoJo's theme.
I feel like maybe JoJo is just so polarizing in its characters and in its presentation that you just have to kind of vibe with it, or you don't kind of. Maybe, I don't know.
I agree with you. Unlike something like One Piece, maybe even Chainsaw Man, Attack on Titan, I don't think JoJo is something for everyone. I think it is a very obscure thing that some people are going to love and some people are just going to detest.
Like Blue Lock.
No, Blue Lock is plain rice and JoJo is something very either off-putting or delicious, depending on your perspective.
I mean, it is definitely very unique, that I will say.
It's very popular in Japan though, right? I hear that it's like top 2 manga series or something. I don't know if it's just because of the sheer
it's very
length.
long.
Yeah, exactly. It's something that's just existed for so long.
Top 2 manga series in what? In sales or?
Popularity, like fans' popularity poll. But then again, if we're judging by fan popularity, maybe people would just... It was the cult. It was the cult of JoJo voting for it.
Traditionally, JoJo has not ever hit the heights of, say, a Dragon Ball or something. It's just a series that's always been there. But it's always been there for over 3 decades now. It has a very dedicated fan base.
Number 1, of course, One Piece. JoJo is number 13.
That's pretty damn good.
13's pretty high. 13 is still pretty high. I did definitely see something that said it was like number 2.
Slam Dunk, number
Maybe
7.
Maybe it was like some 1 year.
You'll like that, Sophie.
For good reason.
The movie was really good.
It hasn't come out here.
But it was really good.
Thank you.
we should make a Doraemon episode next week.
I've never seen a single episode of Doraemon.
It's, I guess, more oriented towards kids. I mean, neither have I will be honest. It's very popular though, like merch-wise and stuff.
Oh yeah, it's massive. I know it, but I've never seen it. So anyways, I have a question for the two of you. As people who have tried, I would say valiantly, given JoJo a try and have probably failed. There are certain series I try and fail, but I know who those series are for. I know that's not for me, but I have a very clear picture in my mind of who enjoys that entertainment. Who do you think the target demographic for JoJo is? Who is the ideal person who's going to be caught by whatever this is?
I'd say Caucasian, male, early to mid-30s. Sydney-based.
Might have a dog.
Minimum of 3 YouTube channels.
No, this is starting to explain a lot.
I don't know. I would like. Are you gonna tell me kids? Because I wouldn't be surprised, but I would be surprised.
I wouldn't say kids. I would have thought that it is more... to the exclusion of part 1, I would say it's probably targeted to a older audience.
It is now.
Especially just given how long he's been writing.
So it used to be published in Weekly Shonen Jump, parts 1 through 6, so it was targeted at that same sort of teen audience. Then it moved publication, which allowed Araki to target it towards more adults. I forget what magazine it's currently published in, but it allowed him to start doing stuff like nudity and more bloody fight scenes, stuff like that. So JoJo definitely has a more mature vibe once it moved.
But I feel like even in the earlier parts, that's just something that he's had to restrain from doing because of, I guess, the rules surrounding shonen. Like the way that he's drawn his artworks, I feel like it's always been quite sensual. He has a very sensual
way of saying
stylist.
it, yes.
Yeah, it's a very sensual art style.
He does indeed, yes. It's given him a lot more freedom, I guess, to explore new ideas.
But are you going to tell
So
us
what
who
is the
actual
yeah?
plot
You're
was?
gonna tell us what?
No, so I'm asking you that question because I've seen and read everything available JoJo related. Okay, that's not true. I haven't seen and read the Rohan Kishibe stuff. I don't care about Rohan. Araki has a self-insert character that comes in part 4 who is a manga artist who gets his own series of spin-offs. It's fine. I don't know who the demographic is. I've just started part 9. I still don't know who this series is for. I don't know which group of people I would sell it to. I think it's just a latent gene that you need to have inside you that was present at the birth of humanity. You either have the JoJo gene or you don't, and there's no way to tell who that person is.
I would actually say though it's because each part is so different from each other. Each part has its own sort of genre, right? You've got a murder mystery, you've got this mob theme going on, the first
Prison Break.
I don't know how to exactly, a Prison Break.
Fruit Mystery.
I guess though for die-hard JoJo fans who have stuck through it from part 1 to I don't know, I guess part 9's coming out now.
It's already out.
Oh, it's already out.
The new protagonist is Jodio.
Oh yeah, you mentioned that. I think
It's happened before. In part 5, the protagonist is canonically both the son of Jonathan and Dio through reasons.
I'm gonna steal your girl Erina style reasons. It's me, Dio.
So it's Dio taking over Jonathan's body.
Okay.
And he fucks a whole ton of women, sires a bunch of Dio-lings that are present in the world that mainly come to light in part 6, but one of them is the protagonist of part 5.
I actually have a question on this. I have a question. So the idea, at least for parts 1 to 6, is that it's generations of the Joestar family. But it's just generations of the Joestar family by name, right? Because at the end of part 1, the baby that Erina saves isn't actually Jonathan's baby. Am I right in understanding it that way?
No, I'm pretty sure they're biologically related.
But it was another woman that risked her life.
The baby is another character, I believe.
Wait, what?
Okay.
Because I'm pretty sure that Erina was
So Erina was already pregnant during that shipwreck?
Oh wow.
Oh, wow.
The most unenthusiastic.
So confused.
Yes, she is pregnant. The reason why you may not have noticed that is because it may not have been planned at the time.
Yeah, I don't think I remember that getting mentioned.
So it's something he just put in there later on, or
All of the Joestars, they had sex prior to Jonathan's death, I imagine.
all of
Wait,
them.
what? All of the Joestars had sex before Jonathan's
No.
death?
No.
Wait, what?
I started a sentence, Manu interrupted, and then I answered the question.
What? No, you just no. Yeah, blame it on me, of course.
I am blaming it on you. All of the Joestars are blood related, which you can tell because in part 3, they all have a star birthmark.
Yeah, that's all so
somewhere on them.
confused.
It's one big incest family.
I mean, they don't fuck each other. The family lines do get confusing because Giorno technically being the son of Jonathan, but also being younger than Jolene, who is Jotaro's daughter. What? Let me just see if I can find this relation. What is Jolene's relation to Giorno?
Wait, Giorno, isn't he in a later part? And he's Jonathan's, is
Yes,
he supposed to be
which-
super old?
Who Dio created by taking over Jonathan's body. So Giorno is Jolene's great-granduncle, and he's younger than her, I believe. That's how JoJo family works.
But it makes a little bit more sense if you say that it's because of Dio and it wasn't actually.
It does. That's the thing. JoJo makes so much sense in context. All of the weird shit that happens, it's an experience that you go along with. You step back from it later and you go, it was strange that Dio turned into a dinosaur and ate part of the corpse of Jesus Christ. But when you're in it, it's just this is reasonable.
I mean, it does sound fairly reasonable, not having seen that episode.
Very rarely does something happen in JoJo and I go, that was weird. Because when you're in the context of it,
If everything is weird, nothing is weird.
it sort of slowly acclimatizes you to really bizarre happenings. It very much in a drip feed way. Because I do think that retrospectively, parts 1, 2, and even 3 start out fairly plain compared to what happens next.
Good to know.
Great to know. So you're going to keep up, and next week we'll do a comprehensive review of part 4.
Yeah, part 4 and then part 5 and then part 6. It's the JoJo series, yeah.
Yeah, it works for me.
Shifting the topic a little bit, is there anything this year, particularly anime-wise or manga-wise, that you're very excited about?
Nope.
All right, well, thanks for listening.
No, before we move on though, I actually had a question about JoJo. Would there be parts that you would recommend for each of us, knowing our personalities? I think I've asked this before, and I know you suggested part 2 for Manu for the sole fact that he's German.
That was a joke, yes. 'Cause
Otherwise,
Sophie, that's an interesting thing. I've known you for, 2 years now? Maybe? Going on? Something like that?
yeah, maybe coming on to 3 probably.
Other than One Piece, I don't actually know what sort of things you like.
Slam Dunk.
Slam Dunk.
Slam dunk
beach.
sports, but unfortunately there's no sports part of JoJo yet. So what takes your fancy? Victorian Gothic horror, World War II strange story, action adventure across the world to stop Dio, small town murder mystery.
I'm liking the murder mystery.
I would say do part
I'm liking
4
the
then.
murder mystery or the mob.
Do them back to back, because I think you can, people are going to crucify me for this, I think you can just jump into part 4 without really needing the previous 3. There will be elements that you won't understand, but that's the sort of beauty about most JoJo parts. They are self-contained stories within their time period. It obviously helps, and in some cases is essential information to know what's happened throughout the generations, but they all just kind of do their own thing. They're quite accessible. And part 4 is where it starts to become, Araki stops focusing on huge ideas like the previous part, which, as I mentioned, was an action adventure across the world to get to Egypt. It's just Araki focuses on this small town. There's a serial killer in the town, and it's the JoJo's protagonist to find out who it is.
Interesting.
So that's a lesson for you, Mana. You gotta keep on going with part 4. It's where it's gonna get good.
Yeah, and Jotaro fights a rat. He loses.
A rat?
Rat! Jotaro used the world and everything. Not the world, Star Platinum, and he still lost a rat. Josuke had to save him.
See, it's funny. You kind of know the memes, but
You don't really understand.
The world is Dio stopping time.
why is it called the world then?
Because it's based on the tarot cards in part 3. All of the stands are based on tarot cards. So he stops time throughout the world for X number of seconds.
Except for his enemy, who is strong enough to withstand that.
Well, because Jotaro has Star Platinum, which apparently can also stop time, and so it becomes a fight of who is stopping time first.
But isn't the person who instantaneously, who's just slightly stopping time faster, automatically the winner?
No, because then that person's time can run out, and then the next person's time stop takes precedence. And
But then wouldn't you just kill that person's time?
Well, they can only do it for a handful of seconds.
In that time that it stopped?
Dio tries. He fully knifes Jotaro and everything, but then time unfreezes and Jotaro's well, it's a good thing I put all of these magazines here, just in case I got stabbed.
Should have gone for the head.
Sometimes, yeah.
Definitely a legendary show, no matter what your opinion of it is, I guess.
Agreed. Also, I did lie to you earlier because Jujutsu Kaisen's coming out this year, isn't it?
It is.
Finally.
Yes.
That's something to look forward to.
Very excited. I thought the kind of freestyle jazz trailer was very interesting choice of music for what the trailer actually contains, I felt. Still had me very hyped up.
I didn't watch the official trailer because every time I tried to see it, I tried to watch it, all I could find were fan-made trailers, and then I just gave up.
I hate that.
Is there anything else that you're looking forward to, Manu?
I mean, Blue Lock ended, which shocked me last weekend.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting it to end.
Yeah, me neither. It was really, really good ending, though. I did enjoy it.
Yeah, and now a really painful wait for the inevitable.
Yeah, which is I feel like they already released they're gonna release a movie though, I think I saw.
Yeah, but it's a prequel based on Nagi, so I'm less interested in it because it's not in the Blue Lock setting.
There's more Tokyo Revengers.
Tokyo Revengers. I never got into it. I'm pretty sure we've spoken about this before.
And now you feel vindicated that you never started.
Yeah, I never actively stopped watching it. I just someday did not watch the weekly episode and just never went back to catch up with it.
Yeah, that happens.
I mean, yeah, Jujutsu Kaisen definitely by far the one I'm most excited about.
I mean, what else is happening this year? I guess Attack on Titan.
Demon Slayer comes out, starts this weekend, actually.
Oh,
Demon
really?
Slayer? Oh, Oh, okay.
The Swordsmith Village. I know you were reading it, Liam. Were you reading it as well, Manu? Or you just anime only?
Yeah, I did finish the manga actually. To be fair, there's not that much left after where we at right now.
Yeah, it is a very short series, I think.
So Jujutsu Kaisen apparently comes out July 6th, which is fantastic.
Oh, it's very soon.
Oh, Bungo Stray Dogs. Gigantic fan. Not sure if you guys seen that. Major recommendation.
We haven't. We've spoken about it several times, though.
I started it recently, actually, but I didn't have time to continue watching it.
There's like another season of Horimiya, which is kind of like, I'm not sure if you've seen that. It was like a rom-com slice of life thing. But that was fairly fun. I watched it on the plane. That was good. So I'm probably going to watch that.
I'm seeing a lot of titles, but just not a lot of interesting things.
Are you guys going to watch The Vending Machine?
I'm genuinely tempted, actually, having just said not a lot of interesting things. I think all I need is one episode of it just to kind of laugh at how the premise is playing out. But if it hooks me, I'm into it. I like Hisakai. It's just most of them are rubbish.
A lot of Isekai I've just started because I thought they sounded really trash and I just kind of kept watching them.
I usually get really bored of them. Like, there was a point where I just stopped watching stuff like the slime one. That time I got reincarnated as a slime. I stopped watching Log Horizon after a certain point as well. All of these shows that have really interesting premises, they end up floundering for me and not really going anywhere. Is ReZero happening soon?
I think so. I think it's this year.
There's a trailer for it, unless it's fan-made.
Okay, Spy Family is actually coming out, which is very exciting in winter.
They're working very quickly.
As they should.
I appreciate that. Oh, Dr. Stone, April. Actually April 6th. Isn't that in 2 days? Ooh.
It is.
So it's already out when you're listening to this. Very nice. To be fair, I'm very curious how that one's, like, I'm not familiar with the manga, but I'm very curious if they're going to be able to, like, make the story engaging now that the first big arc kind of was finished. So curious to see if it can, like, recapture me or not.
I didn't finish reading it, but I remember Dr. Stone was very compelling up until the point where I forgot about it.
It was so compelling when I forgot about it.
Which was after the big first arc. Like, I really enjoyed Dr. Stone. I like the fun sciencey explanations for everything, and like I enjoy playing games like Civilization where you start at the dawn of humanity and you just evolve in terms of technology. That's what Dr. Stone is to me in manga form. But I found that it took effort to keep up with weekly. It just took investment because it doesn't really hook you. It's sort of like a novelty that you appreciate when you're in it, but I don't really go out of my way to access.
Oh, Eden Zero. Isn't that the show that was written by the Fairy Tale guy also?
Which one? Oh, Eden Zero.
Eden Zero, yeah. So
Hiro
that
Mashima.
apparently is already out.
What's the protagonist of Eden Zero's name? Which month is he? So Mashima has a thing where he names his protagonists after all of the seasons. So Natsu was Fairy Tale and Haru was Rave Master before that.
So it must be Aki then, I guess. No, the main character is actually called Shiki.
Well, that's just wrong. That's wrong. Mashima fucked it up.
But there's the blue cat is there again.
They're all the same characters. I see Lucy. He does this. Why does he do this? He just takes his character designs from the previous series and just gives them new roles. He did this with Rave Master as well. A whole ton of those designs got incorporated into Fairy Tale. And then he took a whole ton of One Piece designs and incorporated them into Fairy Tale.
There's also another one that's called Blue Orchestra, and I will say I'm getting a little bit tired of all the blue animes.
I don't know. Like, if it has a similar premise to Blue Lock, where they're looking for, like, one principal violinist.
It's like that. What's that movie with Miles Teller?
Whiplash. I've never seen Whiplash.
Really?
Everyone
Good
says
film.
it's a great movie. It's just one of those things that has fallen through the cracks.
There's like Blue Period and Blue Lock, yeah.
100 women can find.
The one will have a blue period.
But only one in 100,000 women has the blue period.
Did you guys know that Spy Family's getting a movie?
Yeah.
Oh, really? I'm down with that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward. I hope it's good. I mean, the movie thing that definitely... Who started that? Was that
Code White.
Demon Slayer?
Yeah, before the, 18 One Piece movies that came before it.
No, but I mean,
the
like...
Dragon Ball movies that came before that.
Who started the trend of actually making movies that are canon and people want to watch? Not, like, making trash.
Oh, is it canon?
Yeah, I think so. As is, like, kind of like the Mugen Train and
Demon
stuff like
Slayer
that.
was, yeah.
Or, like, the Jujutsu Kaisen one, which was, like, Chapter 0 and stuff.
I don't know who exactly it was, but good on them.
But to be fair, I mean, One Piece barely has anything that you could make a canon movie about. There is like no content you could fill in, which just makes it difficult.
We've talked about this before, and you were on the opposite side, Manu.
You said you'd watch a movie about just caribou.
I was just being sarcastic right now.
Oh, okay.
You could do stuff like the Ace story.
I'm kind of surprised you guys didn't catch that, honestly. Yeah, I'm like, literally give me anything canon about anything in the One Piece world as a movie, and I'll enjoy it 5 times more than like any random adventure on a random island that doesn't exist.
I don't know who it was that started this trend, but thank fuck for them, because it's made anime movies worth going to see.
Yeah, like high quality. You guys went to see Jujutsu Kaisen, the Zero? Just the level of animation in that was so good.
Yeah. It was good.
So yeah, I think it's a great trend to set. It's also a chance. It would be such a great chance for, especially for a series like One Piece that otherwise maybe doesn't have the time to like polish everything to perfection, to actually like take a certain part or a certain piece of the story and just like, you know, hyper produce it. Like imagine if they had taken like the last 10 chapters or so of Wano and just turned that into a cinema level movie to go to the cinema to like watch the end of Wano. That would have been
One Piece film. Gear 5.
No spoilers.
Gear 5 has been spoiled for everyone.
I do love how some people are still like complaining about thumbnails with Luffy Gear 5 when the one official One Piece YouTube channel spoiled it like 2 weeks.
I saw that, yes.
2 weeks after that chapter dropped.
I came across that very recently. It was like somewhere between 2 to 4 weeks there was Gear 5th written and Gear 5th shown in the official channel thumbnail. It's like, oh.
Like right when it came out.
But like also, if all you do is read the manga, you get spoiled on Gear 5th because it's on the volume cover before it actually happens.
Yeah,
so it's like,
exactly.
Yeah, there is no medium where you're not getting spoiled on that.
I mean, yeah, it was in Film Red as well. And Film Red came around at the same time.
I could see someone glancing over that, but yeah, it was.
Do you know? I mean, he's the main protagonist and suddenly he kind of changes
Yeah,
forms.
but Shanks is there and it's a big explosion and there's a stupid demon. I can see people kind of overlooking it.
I mean, yeah, I guess if you're a casual fan, like a very casual fan.
I guess if you're a filthy casual.
Yeah, friends who like casual One Piece fans who saw the movie, they're like, by the way, is Luffy getting like a new form? Because like in the movie, he's like in this one. I'm like, all right.
All right, before we wrap up, we are going to shout out our members this week.
But you have to actually shout, Sophie.
I want to say a big thank you to The Laka, Joel Eggert, and Smokey Hayes.
Yes!
I am also excited.
Yeah!
Smokey, thank you.
Because you did not partake in the screaming, Liam, I think you're going to have to wrap us up with a JoJo pose.
Ooh, not bad, not bad. I was kind of hoping for the lollipop one, but
I could do the Giorno one.
Like I said, very sensual.
A lot of them are very
Getting
sensual.
X-rated for YouTube now. Alright, and I think that about wraps it up. So thank you. Stick with us for next week and subscribe, like, do all that magic. See you guys soon.